ARG boost, Mason Greenwood loan move, and will Marcus Rashford leave the club this summer? These are just a few of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's show. But before we get into that, please do me a small favour. Smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 200 likes on today's show. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel as well. I will be live throughout the whole of the transfer window. There'll be a video for you in the morning, a video for you in the evening. And if anything breaks during the day, I go live as well. So make sure you get involved. Subscribe for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Right, so much to get into on the show this morning. And it's going to be quite a nice one because a lot of the focus is going to be more on players coming in and players coming out. We'll talk a little bit about the manager, but the main focus of today's show is not going to be on the manager, which I think is a bit of a nice, refreshing change because it feels like everybody's just talking about the manager. There's differing stories coming out. Every single time you go on Twitter, somebody says something different. So let's get straight on into it then. Let's talk first of all about Mason Greenwood. So this is coming out from James Ducker from The Telegraph. And he is reporting this morning that apparently Borussia Dortmund have held discussions with Manchester United about a potential loan deal for Mason Greenwood. It says United are open to another season-long loan, provided that it comes with an obligation to buy at the end of it. So we spoke about this story yesterday on the channel that, that Dortmund were apparently really interested in signing Mason Greenwood. They obviously know that he's got an immense talent as a player and wanted to give him another opportunity in the Bundesliga. Now, I think this would be a really, really good deal if we could get this done. Obviously, the Jadon Sancho loan move has worked out quite well. We've got a good relationship with Dortmund. I know they've pulled the wool over our eyes on the Jadon Sancho transfer fee, but still, Dortmund are a good club at a high level. I mean, they're a much higher level than Getafe, aren't they? So I think this makes the most sense. I don't think Mason Greenwood comes back to Manchester United, being completely honest. And I think a loan move with an obligation to buy at the end of it is probably the best for everybody. Mason Greenwood's got 2 years. No, he's got 1 year left of his current contract. So the only thing that maybe worries me about this is, say they loan him out for a season, he would technically be a free agent next year. So that's the bit that I don't really understand. Manchester United would have to give him a new contract in order for this deal to work, because otherwise you'd loan him out and then this time next year he'd just leave for free. And if that's going to happen, you may as well just release him from his contract and let him go wherever he wants. So it's quite a complicated deal to get done here, because obviously if he's only got 1 year left of his contract, they need to really work out what their plan is for him. If they want to bring him back in the future, then give him a new contract. If they want to sell him, then they need to, make sure that their asset is safe, effectively. Because if he goes to Dortmund and does well, they'll just give him a contract next summer and we'll get nothing. So it's quite a complicated one. And the thing you have to remember is, I know the people who want Mason Greenwood to come back think he's been hard done by and all the rest of it. But you have to think that the whole time he was at Getafe, Manchester United were paying most of his wages, were apparently paying for him to have a luxury villa. Like, there was a lot of money spent on Mason Greenwood this season, which makes me think that they are expecting to cash in on him at some point. If they thought, we're never going to be able to sell him, there's nothing we can do, they would have just released him from his contract. But the fact that, that they've effectively supported him in going to Getafe shows me that they think that in the long run there will be some value still there left for Mason Greenwood. So I'll keep you updated on this one. I think it's obviously going to be one to watch throughout the transfer window. He has left Getafe. He won't be playing there next season. He has come back to Manchester. So I'll keep you updated as and when we get more news on that. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Let's have a look. Everyone's saying good morning. Good morning, everyone. What have we got? Lumen says there is no place for Greenwood. Fair enough. Okay, that's obviously your opinion. Some people do want Greenwood back. Me personally, I've always said this. Mason Greenwood is clearly a talented player. There's no shadow of a doubt about that. He was probably our best attacking player before, obviously, all of this stuff went down. But I see no world where Mason Greenwood plays for Man United again. And that's just me looking at the situation, looking at the pressure from the media. Like, it just won't happen. So whether you want him to come back or not, it effectively isn't our decision, is it? But yeah, it's a difficult one, though. It's a very difficult conversation to discuss. I wanted to talk a little bit about this as well. So Neil Custis, a journalist here in the UK, has put out this really interesting article this morning saying that apparently Jim Ratcliffe is going to implement 5 new rules at Manchester United. So this story seems to be quite well briefed, and I'm going to run through those 5 rules with you now. So rule 1, apparently they're not going to sign anybody over the age of 25. Rule 2, they're not going to make any Galactico signings. So that would be people like Ronaldo, Di Maria, Pogba, those big names. Number 3, the style of play is to be set by technical director Jason Wilcox. Number 4, manager to be asked what positions he wants to sign, but not what player. And then rule 5, INEOS to send a list of 3 signings per position for the manager to choose from. So I want to run through these things and I want to get some of you guys' opinions. So we'll start on the first one. Age limit of 25 for new signings. I agree with that. I think we have massively messed up over the years, signing people like Varane, Casemiro, even you could say Christian Eriksen, off the top of my head, Cavani, Falcao, Ronaldo, like all of these people who were, in their 30s, gave them stupid contracts, and now we have a team that's all over the place. Whereas you look at Arsenal, they've got a team for the next 5 to 10 years. Most of their players are young. Most of their players will be in that squad for the next 5 years minimum. Whereas we look at ours and we're like, Varane's going, Casemiro's going. There's more that I've probably forgotten, but some of the older players are obviously Martial, Johnny Evans. Like some of these players who've been part of our first team setup for the last 2 or 3 years are way too old. So I agree with that one. The no Galactico signings bit, I'm not really sure about that because Man United have always been a team that has attracted the biggest names in football. Now, is Jim Ratcliffe saying that their model is going to be to bring in younger players and turn them into the next world-class star? If so, I actually like that because I think a lot of the time our Galactico signings haven't worked. Name me one Galactico signing we've made that's worked in the last 10 years. Bruno wasn't a Galactico signing. Di Maria failed. Pogba, I think Pogba was good. I liked Pogba, but I think overall you would probably say it was a failure. Lukaku, again, I think he was a big signing. Didn't work out. The list goes on and on and on and on. So I can understand why they don't want to buy these Galactico type players. You spend 100 million, you give them crazy wages, and then if it doesn't work, you're out of pocket. I mean, Jadon Sancho was kind of a Galactico type signing, wasn't he? And that's not worked. So I agree with all of that. I think that's sensible. Style of play to be set by technical director, that's normal. That's what every top club does. Brighton, like the manager is told what style of play to play, or they'll bring in a manager who complements the style of play they want to do. So I agree with that one. And I agree with the 4th point as well, that the manager is to be asked what positions he wants, but not what player he wants. That's so important because I'm a massive backer of Erik ten Hag. I want him to stay. I think he's the right man for the job. I think he's taking us in the right direction, but I don't want Erik ten Hag to be picking the players. I agree that he should, say we need a new centre-back, we need a new midfielder, we need a new striker. Yes, he should be the person who decides what positions we need because he's the manager. He coaches the team. But in relation to which the players actually are, it shouldn't be him who makes the shortlist because otherwise we'll just end up with the Dutch national team, won't we? Or we'll end up with an Ajax past and present team or an Eredivisie past and present team. I think Erik ten Hag's talent ID is quite poor, being completely honest, but in his defence, he shouldn't be in a position where he's having to sign all the players and scout all the players. We should have an elite team around him who go and do that. Pep Guardiola at Man City. People probably don't know this and think that Pep's this, almighty genius. Pep doesn't sign any of the players. It's somebody else who picks the players. The director of football says to Pep, these are the players we're going to go for, and then they get them, like Jeremy Doku. Like, none of these people were Pep's scouts. It wasn't like Pep was out watching football and said, let's sign Jeremy Doku. The club decides, and then we'll consult with him and say, we're going to sign this left winger. He's got this style of play. We think it will suit the style of play, and Pep will sign off on it. And that's what needs to happen at United. And then the final one is INEOS to send list of 3 signings per position for the manager to choose from. So he still will have some level of say. They'll put together a shortlist and they'll go to him and say, Erik ten Hag, we know that you want a new midfielder. We have 3 options. You can have Amadou Onana, you can have João Neves, or you can have Fofana. Which one do you want? And then they'll go and get. And Erik ten Hag will probably come back and say, this is just hypothetical, obviously. He'll say, Amadou Onana is my number 1 target. João Neves number 2, and Fofana number 3. And then they'll go and try and sign them in that order. And that's how a proper football club is run. It hasn't been like that at Man United for the last 10 years. It's been a complete mess. It's been people who don't even know anything about football signing the players. You know, Ed Woodward, who was a banker, being like, right, let's bring in Pogba. He'll sell loads of shirts. Or, right, let's bring in Cavani and Falcao. They'll sell loads of shirts. That's been the focus to this point. It's been players that bring commercial value. Players that will open up sponsorship deals in new territories. You know, whether that might be bringing in Cavani might have opened up more deals in South America. Or do you see what I mean? Like, that's always been what their logic's been. It's been, what players can we bring and how much money will that bring us through sponsorships? Not what style of play do we want to do? And that's where the problems have been over the last kind of 10 years. Welcome to everyone who's just joined the video, by the way. If you have just joined, please smash a like on today's show. Let's try and see 200 likes on today's video. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel as well. I will be live throughout the whole of the transfer window. There'll be a video in the morning, a video in the evening, and if anything breaks during the day, I will go live as well. So make sure you subscribe, get involved here on Daily Red Devil. We've got a really nice community. Everyone gets along really well. It's not toxic at all, which I actually want to say big ups to all of you who watch regularly. There is no toxicity in this chat, ever. Ever. And I'm not just saying that. It's such a nice community that we've built. Obviously, it's not, it's a small community at this point, but everybody gets along, and I really, really like that. So big ups to all of you. Okay, moving on from that, though, let's talk a little bit about Harry Maguire. Obviously, he is a player that has fans and has people who want him out of the club. I want to say this, right, before I read out the story. We have to give Harry Maguire credit this season. In my opinion, he's been our best centre-back this season. Obviously, Varane and Martinez have been injured. I'm not by any means saying that Harry Maguire is our best centre-back at the club, because he's not. But this season, he has been, in my opinion, our best centre-back. He never complains. He gives 150%. He always makes himself available. So we should really, really give Harry Maguire some credit, because he has had so much abuse over the last kind of 2 or 3 years. People calling him a fridge, people calling him slabhead, like all of these things. I know some people think it's funny, but he's gone out there every single day and given 150%. And even though people will say, oh, he's only ever won 2 trophies, blah, 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 I do actually think he has an elite mentality. I just don't think as a footballer in the modern day, he suits modern football. He suits a Burnley or an Everton, someone who sits back and parks the bus. I mean, arguably, against Man City, he would have been perfect on Saturday, wouldn't he? Like, against Man City, Harry Maguire would have been absolutely perfect, because we didn't really push our centre-backs that far up the pitch, did we? So let's read out the story. So this is coming from Charlie Wyatt, who is a good journalist here in the UK. He's reporting this morning that Harry Maguire wants to stay at Manchester United next season, regardless of who the manager is going to be. It says Harry Maguire is desperate to stay at the club and will have talks in the next few weeks. Now, I'm going to do a poll actually on this one, because it'll be really interesting to see what people think. I'm going to wrap up this first poll. So the first poll we had was, should Rashford leave Man United this summer? Anybody watching this back on repeat, get in the comment section and write Rashford stay or Rashford go. Let me know. I'll read through all the things and it'll be really interesting to see. But let's do a poll on Harry Maguire, shall we? Should Maguire leave United? In my opinion, Lindelof should go first. I think Harry Maguire is a better player than Lindelof. Definitely. So my priority would be this. Lindelof goes. Johnny Evans, you've been absolutely amazing. You've done more than I ever thought you would have at the age of 36. But Johnny Evans should go. So that's 2 players out the door. And then obviously Varane goes as well. So Lindelof you sell. Johnny Evans' contract's expired. And Varane's contract expired. That's 3 players gone. Okay? I would personally keep Martinez, obviously. I would keep Maguire. And then I would go and sign 1 or 2 other good centre-backs. My preference would be Todibo from Nice for 40 million euros. And then Tosin, who is 26 years of age, plays for Fulham at the moment, but will be available as a free agent. So you've gone from your defence being Lindelof, Varane, Martinez, Johnny Evans and Maguire to Maguire, Martinez, Todibo, Tosin. I think that's an improvement. I honestly do. And obviously you've got Willy Camboala as well, who's coming through the youth academy and is a good backup option. So for me personally, I keep Harry Maguire. I think Lindelof is easier to sell. Lindelof is on much lower wages. He's younger. He's the captain of the Swedish national team. Like, there'll be a team in Portugal or a team in Spain who would want to buy Lindelof without a shadow of a doubt. There'll be a definite market for Victor Lindelof. Whereas Harry Maguire, he's not going to want to leave England. So that limits your options. West Ham were obviously really interested in him, but West Ham have just signed a centre-back. Literally yesterday, West Ham signed a new centre-back, a first-team centre-back from Flamengo. So West Ham won't be back in for him. Maybe a team like Everton would be, but I just don't think Harry Maguire is going to want to leave Manchester United to go to Everton. Why would he? He's on big money at Man United. And if he went to Everton, he's not going to get the same type of wages he's going to get now. That's why the deal fell through last year. He's on £200,000 a week at Man United, which I know is ridiculous. And that, brings me back to the point I made earlier of how badly we've been run over the last 10 years. That Ed Woodward thought giving 80 million to Leicester City and 200 grand a week in wages was a sensible decision. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Whereas if you compare it to Victor Lindelof, right? He's on 100 grand a week. He has 2 years left of his contract. He's 29 years of age. He's the captain for the Swedish national team. You can easily see like a Benfica or maybe like an Atletico Madrid or someone of that level, a good team in Europe still would come in for him. And I think we would get probably 10 to 15 million pounds would be my prediction. So that's what I would do because, it's easy for us to say, get rid of Maguire. He's rubbish. But I actually think Maguire is a good option. I think Maguire has proved over this season that he is a worthy squad player. And also, as I said, you've got to factor in. It's all good and well us sat here saying, oh, sell Maguire for 30 million. I mean, who's going to buy Maguire? That's the question, isn't it? West Ham were the only team interested in him, and they've just gone and signed another centre-back. So you actually have to look at this as a bit more of a wider conversation. Who is going to buy Maguire? I don't think anybody will, to be honest. He's got 1 year left of his contract as well. So I personally think Maguire will probably stay this season, and I think he'll probably leave on as a free agent next year. But we'll wait and see what happens. Obviously, in a dream world, INEOS come in, they sell Maguire, they sell Lindelof, and they get, good money for them. But we've been so bad at selling players over the last decade that I'm still looking at it as if we're owned by the Glazers. I think our biggest transfer fee in the last 10 years was Dan James. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? I've seen Man City just sold a youth player to Southampton for 20 million yesterday. Someone none of you have ever heard of. Literally, right? Whereas our biggest transfer in the last decade was literally Dan James, and it was about 20 million. And that just kind of sums it up, when people are like, oh, Maguire's worth 30 million. I mean, that would break our transfer record in the last 10 years. So as much as I want to believe that could happen, I don't think it will. What are people saying in the chat this morning? Let's have a look. AR4 says, Maguire played well because of the low line we played. He'd be exposed in our ideal high line. Yeah, mate, 100%. You're 100% correct there, and I agree with you 100%. But as a backup option, somebody to come off the bench with 20, 30 minutes to go, somebody to play in the Europa League, somebody to play in the FA Cup and the League Cup, I think Maguire would be all right. But I get your point, because Erik ten Hag is going to want to play with a certain style of football no matter who's starting. And obviously Harry Maguire doesn't allow you to do that. Because even if you're playing against a team in the Championship, right, and you've got Harry Maguire sat on the halfway line, you're going to be found out. It doesn't matter whether it's a Premier League side or if it's a Europa League side or whatever. If you try and play high press, possession-based football with a centre-back like Maguire, you will be found out at probably any level, because all it takes is a ball over the top. He can't catch up, and the opponent are in. But it's the same with Lindelof, though. Lindelof's not very fast. It's the same with Johnny Evans. He's not very fast. So if we're going off on that argument, Johnny Evans needs to go, Lindelof needs to go, Maguire needs to go. And I would agree, of course, but I'm just trying to be realistic here, because I can't imagine that Manchester United will sell 3 centre-backs as well as let Varane go as well. That'll be 4 centre-backs gone. Matthew says, shouldn't we just sign Bremer, Todibo and Tosin? I think Todibo and Tosin is realistic. I think Bremer's going to cost too much money. Apparently Juventus want about 60 million for Bremer, and I don't think Man United will pay that. Keeping on the topic of centre-backs, there's more and more stories this morning linking Brathwaite to Manchester United. Apparently Jim Ratcliffe really, really wants to sign him. Apparently Everton are asking for £80 million, though. Absolutely mental. Let's do a little poll, shall we? And see which centre-back people want. Everyone who's just joined the video, please smash a like. We've got nearly 400 people watching now, which is amazing. So let's try and go for 200 likes on today's video. And please subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. I'm just going to get a poll set up quickly, guys. So give me 1 second. So the poll is going to be this. Who shall we sign? Let's do Bremer, Todibo, Branthwaite, or let's do Ruben Neves. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, someone said Lenny Yora. Yeah, I forgot about him. All right, so let's just go with that. If you want somebody else, then obviously you can put it in the comment section. But the question I'm asking is, what centre back should Manchester United sign? I think tossing as a free agent is something we should definitely be doing. But let's say we can only sign one player in the centre back position for a fee. Who would you go for? I would probably go with Todibo. I think he would definitely do well in this team. He's fast. I think he's kind of like a young Varane. But yeah, wait to see what happens. Get involved in the poll. Thoughts. Right, let's talk about the manager really quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on the manager because I think it's a little bit boring at the moment. But the headline this morning is apparently Manchester United have 3 targets now for the manager. Thomas Frank, Poch, and Thomas Tuchel. It seems like Roberto De Zerbi is out of the race. I'm not sure entirely why. There's some people saying he might be going to Napoli. We'll wait and see what happens with De Zerbi. But apparently the 3 top front runners for the United job now. Obviously, Kieran McKenna's signed a new contract at Ipswich. Apparently it's Thomas Frank, Poch, and Tuchel. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, none of them inspire me in the slightest whatsoever. And I don't understand it. I really, really don't. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. Someone's saying you're glitching. It should be all right now. I think it's going to sort itself out. Let me know if the video is all right now. Right. So we spoke about the manager. We spoke about Branthwaite. We spoke about Mason Greenwood. Final story we want to talk about is obviously Marcus Rashford. So this is coming out from a pretty reliable Arsenal journalist. And they are reporting this morning that Mikel Arteta and Marcus Rashford have apparently held talks on a potential summer transfer over the last couple of weeks. It says there is interest on both sides, but it's currently unknown whether Manchester United would be willing to sell to Arsenal. Now, I want your guys' opinions. Would you sell Marcus Rashford to Arsenal? Let me know. It would be really, really tough to see Marcus Rashford in an Arsenal shirt. Obviously, being a born and bred Manchester United fan, local lad, all the rest of it. You know what though? I could see Marcus Rashford doing incredibly well at Arsenal. I think Arsenal are already in that position where they've struggled over the last the last couple of years they've done well, but the first 3 years they were finding their feet. I think Marcus Rashford would walk into that Arsenal team and would do really, really well. People saying, why would Arsenal buy Rashford? Arsenal are apparently looking for another attacking player. So, and remember, I know we don't like him in this position, but Marcus Rashford can play as a striker, and Arsenal are desperate for a striker. And we know that Arteta likes players who can play in lots of different positions. And obviously Rashford can play on the left, he can play on the right, and he can play as the striker. People in the chat are saying, I want at least 80 million for Rashford. Somebody saying 85, somebody saying 100. Yeah, I think about 80 million is kind of the benchmark for Marcus Rashford if we were going to move him on. Anything less than that, I think, is maybe cutting ourselves a little bit short. He is a good player. He just, for whatever reason, he just hasn't been able to find the form he was last season. He seems unhappy. So yeah, I don't know. I'll keep you updated on that one. But for me personally, if Arsenal came in with an £80 million bid, I think you would have to listen to it. It's just whether Man United want to sell to a direct rival. Obviously, Chelsea sold us Mason Mount. So I don't think it's that unheard of anymore. I know like 10 years ago, big clubs in the Premier League didn't really sell players to one another, but it does happen more regularly now. Obviously, Man City sold Jesus to Arsenal. Mason Mount went to Man United. Kai Havertz went to Arsenal. So it does seem to happen. But yeah, Man United haven't really actually sold any of their big players to other English clubs. So we'll wait and see what happens with that one. But I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined me on the show this morning. I will be back at 6 p.m. for your evening show. Please make sure to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if this is your first time watching. And I'll speak to you all at 6 p.m. UK time.